Thanks for joining us. My name is Onlin Wang. I'm a Philadelphia-based organizer, recent delegate to the Democratic National Convention, and a member of the Philadelphia Public Banking Coalition, and I serve as one of its liaisons to the activist groups Reclaim Philadelphia and Lilac. I'm here today to interview Dr. Deborah M. Figart about an upcoming paper of hers shedding light on the potential economic benefits of a public bank in the city of Philadelphia. She's a distinguished professor of economics at Stockton University, and I'm honored that she's gracing us with her time and insight. Dr. Figart, could you please introduce yourself?
Sure, Onlin. My pleasure to be here with you. Please call me Deb. I'm a labor economist, which means I focus a lot on employment and pay issues, such as living wages, wage discrimination, and also job quality and the rise in gig work in America.
Thank you. Thank you. So you have a new study that explores the potential impact of a public municipal bank in the city of Philadelphia. It's based on your earlier study where you estimated the impact of a proposed state bank of New Jersey. How do you make these estimates?
Economists like me and urban planners and others use regional input-output analysis to empirically estimate the impact of a new product or service. It's been a tool for a long time. In fact, it's based on the work of an economist named Vasily Leontief, who won a Nobel Prize for this technique.
Thanks. Could you briefly explain input-output analysis and how do you use it to estimate the effect of a new public bank?
Sure. Input-output analysis is commonly used to examine the economic impact of any local institution. For example, the analyst can calculate the potential gains of a new local hospital, a branch campus of a university, a sports stadium, and a proposed Philadelphia public bank. In the case of a public bank, the empirical question asked is, how much new output, new earnings, and new jobs are created due to the new lending or credit issued by the public bank? And the public bank would then have a multiplied effect on economic activity in the area. The multipliers are available from the U.S. Department of Commerce Bureau of Economic Analysis, and they're part of a well-known and highly regarded regional input-output modeling system, and it's called RIMS-2.
Thanks for the explanation. What do you do with these RIMS-2 multipliers then to estimate the impact of a public bank?
Good question. I first had to make a few assumptions about how the Philadelphia bank might be capitalized and how much money then might be lent out. I assumed that the bank would hold 10% of its deposits against reserves, just like large banks do nationwide. And this means the bank could lend out as much as 90% of its deposits. Next, how much would the bank lend during its initial rounds of opening up and lending? Without knowing the exact legislative mission of the Philadelphia Public Bank or how much of the general revenue funds the city or city-related functions, such as a school board, would be deposited in the public bank, I began with three relatively conservative models. The city would deposit either 25% of its general revenue budget in the bank, or 50%, or 75%. Now, you can think of this as a small, medium, or larger size movement of funds from private banks like Wells Fargo to the public bank. Or you can think of it as a phased-in, stepwise withdrawal of funds, 25% for 3 years in a row.
Okay. Well, it seems like you have the input-output multipliers and then your opening model. What did you find to be the economic impact of a Philadelphia public bank?
So using these three deposit scenarios, the 25% of funds or the 50% or the 75% of withdrawal of money to the public bank, and ultimately lending out 90% of funds against reserves, I found that Philadelphia earnings would rise by $161 million to $482 million. I found that roughly 3,600 to 10,800 new jobs would be created across the city, and that the Philadelphia metro area value added or gross regional product would increase by $1 billion to as much as $3 billion.
Wow. And these economic benefits are from getting the bank up and running, as you said, right? Are there other economic benefits that come further down the road?
Yes, these are just the initial economic impact of getting the new bank open and the first round of lending, as I modeled. I think we can also expect more economic impact or oomph when the projects funded by the bank get into high gear. It could be new construction projects or renovation projects like low-income housing or investments in green energy or removing asbestos from our public schools. So when those projects get going, those projects will also generate a ripple effect down the road, more new local output, more employee earnings, and further job creation. And in the long run, the city will save money through lower interest rates on borrowing from its own public bank. And finally, all or a portion of any end of year bank surpluses over its expenses can be returned to the city treasurer to benefit city taxpayers.
Wow, that's really fascinating stuff. Final question then. How should activists use your paper and findings?
Great question. Economists often work with activists on advocating public policies or modeling their impact. In this case, while activists can definitely point to a lot of qualitative and community benefits for a public bank in our city, it can really help to have numbers from number crunchers back it up.
Thanks so much for your time, Dr. Figart.
You're welcome.